I think.
Looks like you are. It says you are.
There we go. All right. And away we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Howard County Board of Education candidate debate for District 3. I am your host and moderator, Scott Ewart of Scotty's blog. Joining us for the debate today are the candidates running in District 3, Jolene Mosley, Tom Heffner, and Gian Alfeo. A few quick notes on the debate rules. I will ask a question, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. I will hold up my phone to indicate when you have 30 seconds remaining, and I will notify the candidates to complete their sentence when time's up. I ask each candidate to be respectful of the time they are given to answer the questions. After each candidate has had an opportunity to answer the question, each candidate will have an opportunity to provide a rebuttal for 1 minute in the order that they answered the original question. This rebuttal will give the candidates an opportunity to answer any items mentioned by another candidate or to further clarify their position. Each candidate has joined the podcast or Scotty's blog and had an opportunity to provide an introduction in the past. And so we were going to move right into questions for this debate. I conducted a random ordering before the start of this event with the candidates. And the first question will go to Tom Heffner, followed by Gian Alfeo, and then Jolene Mosley. With that, folks, we are going to hop right into the questions. And while we're not doing intros, the very first question is an opportunity for an intro. A blog reader asks, what qualifies you to be a member of the Howard County Board of Education? Tom, kick us off.
Thanks, Scott. So here's what I'll say. I had this as part of kind of my closing statements, but I'll just say it now. There's not much in life I'm good at, but there's two things that I consider my superpower. Two things that I'm really, really good at. And one is solving really, really hard problems. I used to work at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory, and I worked on a lot of hard problems with government, with the military. Since then, I've gone out on my own business, so I've worked with businesses, and that's the one thing I do really, really well. Another thing that I do really well is bringing together diverse groups of people that have oftentimes polarizing viewpoints, or at least polarizing to each other. And I'm really good at bringing people together to build alignment, not necessarily consensus, but build alignment towards a shared goal, a shared problem. And I think those two things, more than anything right now, with the state of the BOE and the state of Howard County's school system, are going to be really, really helpful and an asset. And so I would lean into those superpowers, my strengths, if you will, to be successful in this position.
I need to remember to unmute myself when I ask questions. That's pretty
helpful. You're giving me the hand gesture. I was like, I'm not finished.
Man. I know. John, on to you. Same question.
All right, there we go. Let's get this started. Well, I come in from not only a parent perspective, but as a business investor. I'm used to looking through budgets and seeing where we can make cuts and things like that to make the money we have go further. So I'm bringing that aspect in it, as well as, experiences of collaboratively working with people you may not always agree with. Being in the Army as a veteran, I've dealt with people. We may not have the same views, but we learned how to work together to get there. And I don't think I'm going to get much more out of that.
I just need to stay off mute. Jolene.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jolene. Thank you for joining and watching to learn about all of us. Please know if you have questions outside of this, you can contact me or any of us probably. One thing that I wanted to talk about was the experience that I would bring as a Board of Ed member. I've been a very active community advocate for a while in regards to the school system. I currently have 4 children in the school system. I have 2 in high school, 1 in middle school, and a 4-year-old. I have about 13, 14 years of HCPSS experience, and I have many more years to come. I am a CAC vice chair, and through that role, I'm also on the operating budget review committee. So I am very, I know the communication skills with the Community Advisory Council, and I have been working on the school system budget for a while now too. I think that my skills as the school experience and my children's experience, as well as my work experience, I'm a data scientist. I do modeling, I do outcome analysis, and I also do longitudinal studies and things like that. I work with people from around the world, and I am very active in a lot of things that I do.
All right. Tom, any follow-up? You're on mute. Haha.
Got me. So the only thing I would add, and is something I think that would be part of my platform and part of the thing that I would bring to the BOE is a big part of my previous consulting experience with the Army was teaching resilience and helping them to bounce back and push through adversity. And I think one of the things that I'd like to bring to the Howard County school system is this idea of teaching the cognitive tools of resilience for our students, because what I can't predict is the future, but I can tell you that we're going to, and our students and our children are going to encounter adversity, right? Whether it's COVID-19 or otherwise. And so I think that's just a fundamental aspect of being able to, of live life and to be able to push through and bounce back through adversity. And so that's something, another expertise and experience that I'd bring to bear as well.
Okay. John, any follow-up?
Let's see if I can get it out.
Okay.
But yeah, I've also been a member of the PTAC and, working with other people during those situations and helping through back in the day, pushing through for more accountability through the FOOS era and things of that nature. And I'm just looking forward to hopefully having everybody's vote to get there and continue that fight. And
for those that don't know, Gian is under the weather. He was diagnosed with the COVID-19, and he's on the backside of that. But that's part of what he's going through. I want to thank, I was in the middle of this, and y'all, the other candidates, just give me the second. I want to thank him for powering through and participating in this. I can't imagine how difficult that might be for him, but I appreciate it. Jolene, you get the last word on this.
Well, one quick note. Do you think we should give Gian some more time on his answers if he has a coughing spell in between?
I will.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'll be nice on the time for him.
Yeah, only if he's up for it.
Yeah.
So I understand teaching resilience and all that too. I've had a lot of pivoting in my life and in my skills. I know what it's like to have things happen to you that you don't expect. I am a parent of a childhood cancer survivor. I also know what it's like to volunteer in the schools. I've been an advocate for them. I have been on various advisory boards and things like that for the school system. I have good relationships with many of the educators in our school system, and I think that building those experiences and those relationships are very important in being a Board of Education member.
All right, thank you all. That's question 1 down. We're going to move on to question 2. And while some may not want me to address this topic, I'm going to ask you a redistricting question because everyone gets one through these debates. So here's my question. The 5 members elected to the board this election cycle will very possibly be dealing with redistricting when High School 13 is ready to come online. This school, which is physically located in District 3, will need to be filled, and that will generate the need for redistricting. My question is this. As the school system will continue to have schools that will be overcrowded when High School 13 comes online, would you support a redistricting process that solely focuses on the need for High School 13, or would you prefer that the board also address the continued overcrowding issues and needs at the other schools across the school levels in the county during this upcoming redistricting process? And Gian, we're going to start with you. Do the best you can, man.
Oh, thanks. But with that, I'm looking at what our previous redistricting and what went right, what went wrong. One of the things that I think we actually need to do is start looking now. What I would do is not just address High School 13. You got to address the entire thing, all the overcrowding, everything we got going on. But lost my train of thought. What I would do is look at how we can balance capacities as best as we can. I mean, right now, this new one that they just did, we went from 21 overcrowded schools to 15. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to redistrict our way out of overcapacity. We have to build new schools. So the best thing to do is just address what we can, make our adjustments, as well as try to level out as best as possible.
You good? Okay, Jolene.
So we are going to have high school 13 coming on soon, and I've been on the sidelines through several redistricting processes now. There are some things in the process that I think need altered. Coming to it as a data scientist, I think that we need to do some data freezing so that we all know, as community members, Board of Ed members, and staff working with the data, what assumptions are made on the data, keep those assumptions solid, what my brain. Data freeze. So we all know what we're talking about, and use that same data freeze for the entire process. Right now, they are updating data, updating plans, all these things. I also think we need to stop it with the guess and check kitchen sink type modeling. So what I would like to see is an iterative process of models for optimization of the redistricting. And the reason why we have to redistrict for various things in the redistricting is because we need the classroom experience to be useful and healthy and good for not only the students, but the educators that are in the room. If an educator is dealing with all different types of students with all different needs and is overwhelmed in an overcrowded classroom or overcrowded school, or there's all these different things that are happening in the classroom, we need to make models that deal with that. And I really think that there are ways that we can do that with optimization modeling to keep things going. I would like the portables, I don't think are a good solution. And it's been this process where an overcrowded school gets a portable added to make more space for enrollment. But what happens is perhaps the school next door to it then does not have full enrollment, and they're not doing maintenance on the buildings. So at the same time, we are putting all these portables in to handle enrollment. And in the next place, we're not dealing with the maintenance on top of all these other problems. So I do think it's a full look at the whole county when we're redistricting for high school 13.
Okay, Tom.
I remembered to turn it off this time. Yeah, so I would yes and what Jolene said. She made some really great points there. I would redistrict for all. I think that one thing that I would do, I would definitely redistrict for all, but I would take that as an opportunity to throughout the current process of redistricting. Having gone through several of these redistricting processes, I've seen it get more and more, like people are becoming more angry, more disenfranchised, more anxious, you name it, right? And so if you keep doing the same thing and you get the same outcome and you expect you expect something different, that's insanity, right? And so it's pretty clear that this process doesn't work and we need to start from scratch. We need to have a better process. So that's the other thing that I would be doing. The last thing I would say is I think it's really important that whatever process that we come together around, I think it's important that we don't at the 11th hour decide, hey, you know what? I know we had this plan over here, but what the heck? Let's just throw it out and try something else. Like that never works. When I worked at the Applied Physics Laboratory, we didn't work for 2, 3, 4 years on a satellite launch. And then on launch day, you say, oh yeah, you know what? Like, let's just throw this plan out. That seems like a good idea. Let's just go with this one. No, that's a terrible idea. And so, I mean, you have to have time. You have to start off with a plan and iterate and improve it, like Jolene said. And we need to make it, built on solid models. But those are really important things that we need to keep in mind as we go through this next redistricting and inevitable ones after that.
Awesome. All right, Gian, any follow-up?
I get to the unmute button here. Well, with that, not only do we need to start looking at the process now, we need to start involving the communities as well. That's one of the big things on why our communities are so upset was they were not involved in the process. They simply got told, this is what we're doing, and we don't care what you got to say. We also, like Tom said, is we need to get a solid base. Well, we haven't had that yet because we don't have enough schools in our county. We need a lot more. I think we're somewhere around 1,400 elementary school seats short. I think it's somewhere around 700 middle school seats that we're short. So we need to start trying to find a way to get those seats available, and portables aren't the answer. Those things aren't maintained. They were supposed to be a temporary process back when I was in high school, and we're still doing it. We have not changed our ways, and that's what we need to do now, is change our ways, redo redistricting from the bottom up, and get a solid base, like Tom said. I made it through.
Congratulations, Jolene.
I think when we're thinking about how things have been and how things will be in the future, I think we need to also consider how we're going to be impacted by this pandemic that we're dealing with, right? Right now, I worry because I read the different ideas of when ideas to get the students back into school. And at the same time, I see teenagers on their Zoom call, or the Meet calls with their younger siblings they're watching at the same time they're trying to do work. I have heard from the community about younger students watching their other younger students. So I think we're going to learn about a whole lot of things that families are dealing with that we need to handle at the same time as understanding how redistricting will impact them as well. It's going to be a more complicated problem going into the redistricting process anyway. So I think a lot of communication skills and modeling experience will be good for that.
Awesome. Exactly 1 minute. That was great. Tom, you get the final word on this.
Yeah. So one other thing I would say is that I think that whoever is on the board is going to have to show some leadership and build some alignment around what are the one or two factors, things that they want to prioritize in whatever redistricting solution goes forward. Because we have this saying in design and innovation that is, if you design for everything, you design for nothing. And when you set out a redistricting plan that designs for and tries to optimize number one for A to Z, it's not going to work very well. And so that doesn't mean that these other factors are unimportant, but it does mean that you need to prioritize things and figure out, okay, what are those one or two things that we want to build an optimal solution around for? And again, like working collaboratively with the, with the board and with the superintendent, like you can come up with that, but you can't just say like, let's just design for everything.
Awesome. All right, folks, that's it for question 2. We're going to move on to question 3. And this one comes from a blog reader. I love my blog readers and the fact that they send me questions every now and then. Actually, they've sent me a lot for these. But here's this one. They ask, I would like to know how each of the candidates view the election by district versus election at large in terms of their duty of representation on the Board of Education. Also, how do you see how that will affect the dynamics, this change with the Board of Education? And I'm going to add in my own little piece to this. Do you prefer this method of electing officials to the Board of Education, or did you prefer the previous method of at large? Jolene, we're going to start with you.
District 3 has been underrepresented for a long time on the Board of Education. With the role, I feel like it is important to, the goal of opening it up by district was to allow a more varied people to run for the Board of Ed, to open up that opportunity to other people. And we have 3 people running for the board, so that's good from our district. So I kind of prefer that so far. I don't know if we're having an accurate experience in campaigning by district right now, since our campaigns are so skewed anyway. So I think we might have to wait to decide on that question. But the one thing I do want to remind people is, even though I live in District 3 and I would be voted in for District 3 and I would be the Board of Ed member for District 3, my children attend schools in District 2. District 3 students attend schools in District 2, District 3, and District 4. So even though the role is voted in by district, the role really is a countywide role, because all the little districts kind of all overrun each other. So it is important to hear the community voice and to represent your local community that you're voted into, but as well as all the students in the county.
Okay. Tom.
So look, I think that all students matter, and I think that everybody that's running for the board would tell you that. I think the good thing about this is perhaps, and we'll find out, like Jolene said, it's a little bit of an experiment, a little bit of a prototype to break out my design thinking innovation background, is that you're going to find out, is this a better way, a better approach going forward for the members to better engage or more effectively engage with their constituents? And I think it will be. I think it gives us an opportunity to focus in on our immediate regional, local kind of area within the county. But at the end of the day, I don't know that you'd find anybody that's going to say, well, look, I'm only going to care about, only my constituents. I mean, we're all running because we want a better education for all the students in the county. So that's my way to say it both ways, Scott.
Okay, thanks. Gian.
Oh, always when I'm about to call.
Always. I'm going to get you every time.
Well, I think it's a fantastic idea is to go by districts now, because hopefully we won't end up with schools like Hammond that need a bucket for a sink. This way we actually have people from the districts actually being there to talk about what their district needs. It's not just, hey, I'm going to run and get voted in by one side of the county that I'm not even supposed to be representing, versus this is my district, this is who I'm going to represent. I know it's a board, it's a whole countywide thing, but it also helps to work collaboratively so that we don't have districts like D3 that's been forgotten about, as it seems, like D2 and D3, I should say. That seems to be forgotten about. Schools aren't being maintained, and they've gotten to a point where it's just in such disrepair. So hopefully moving forward, we stick with this. This way everybody knows who their actual representative is. This way, if they are seeing seeing issues in the schools, they can bring it to their representative. This way that representative can do what they, bring it to the board's attention so they can work together to fix those issues. There we
go. All right. Thanks, Gian. Jolene, any follow-up or clarification?
Yeah. I wanted to mention that, we all support the public school system. We love the kids that are in the school system. And really the burden of education falls on us to educate our students the best we can. And by having people represented by district, we can have different views on not only how the intention of a policy is, but the actual functioning and impact that policy has on our local students. I think sometimes when policy is determined by people outside of a scope of a certain demographic or group, it can be very biased. And by having us by district, it kind of narrows down communication on our local level, and then we can aggregate that up to work as a team to really know how these policies need to change to be functioning more effectively.
Excellent. Tom.
So I would yes and Jolene again there. I couldn't have said that better. The only thing I would add to that is I do like, so I kidding aside from before, I think I do like the fact that we have this kind of localized, each district has their representation, but I also like that it's balanced with the at-large members, right? To be able to zoom out and say, okay, we get your perspective, but here's also kind of the larger zoom out perspective as well. So remains to be seen, how effective it'll be, but given, the way things have gone over the last several years, try something right. Jolene, I was just reading your lips, but yeah, I think it'll be a good path forward, and we'll find out whether it works or not.
Awesome. Gian, you get the final word on this, if you'd like. You're mute. Everyone's going to
Everybody's getting it. And there's the cough. So yeah, it's going to be a lot better than it's been over God knows how long we've been doing it the wrong way. So I mean, there's really not much. I mean, every candidate here is all put it out there. This is a good thing. And again, everybody knows who their representative is. Before, you were just like, okay, it's somebody who lives somewhere. Not only do we live in the district, many of us have students that not only go to the districts, but they go throughout the county. And I've lived in this district since 1989. So I've been to these schools that we are discussing.
All right, excellent. Anything else for it? You want to? Okay, just making sure. All right, we're gonna move on to question number 4, and this is another one submitted by a blog reader, and the blog reader asks: substitute teachers have been laid off for the duration of our current learning at home paradigm that we're in today, but at some point, the need to bring them back will be imperative, given that every surrounding jurisdiction pays subs anywhere from 6% to 30% more, with Anne Arundel County just having dramatically raised in January its sub pay rate, so as to now be 16% more than the Howard County Public School System pays. Would you support including a pay raise for subs in the still being considered 2021 budget? And with this, I believe we'll start with Tom.
Absolutely. Listen, teaching, if you have kids, if you don't have kids, I think most people would tell you it's one of the most important jobs that we have. Our children are with them to learn, but our children, not just to learn the academics, but to learn values, to learn how to be a good human being. And hopefully we're demonstrating that at home. They have such a huge impact on our children's lives that it's absurd to me to think that we're trying to nickel and dime substitute teachers when you look at how much the surrounding counties are paying their substitute teachers. And this brings up a whole bigger conversation around budgeting and things like that. But the solution going forward can't be to nickel and dime the people that are very, very, very important into educating our children, teaching our children values, teaching them how to be good people, good persons, good citizens. I just think that that's if we're trying to lead by example, what are we doing if we're not adequately compensating the people that are most important to our kids' lives?
Excellent. Gian. No worries. Take your time.
All right, here we go. I would absolutely go for this. They need a pay raise. These people are the ones doing the job. They're the ones doing the teaching. We're not, well, I mean, currently we are trying, and many of us are finding out how hard it actually is. And yes, we need to do a pay increase for the substitute teachers because we need to draw teachers in. Whether it's a full-time or substitute teachers, we need teachers in our schools. Right now, we're not going to be getting them if they're getting more money from in other counties. They're going to rather work there than work in our county because they're making more elsewhere. So we need to do our best to bring them in and keep them here, as well as our regular teachers. We need to start stepping it up. We need paraeducators as well. There's a lot of things we're going to need to do. We can cut budget elsewhere, but we can also make these pay increases for our substitutes by doing that.
All right, Jolene.
I had the experience of being a substitute teacher a long time ago. I had some influential teachers in my life, and I wanted to, as I got my math degree, go back and teach some of their classes. So I did that. I went back and taught some of the classes at my old high school. That was an experience that was very difficult and very interesting at the same time. When I compare what I was paid at that time, which was in the early 2000s, to what they're paid now in Howard County, I definitely would like to see an increase in their pay rate. I do know from working on the budget that it is very tight, and it's getting tighter and tighter. So it is a big conversation to have. But this substitute teachers are so very important, and sometimes they get they get involved in the school culture really deeply. I'd like to work on policy that focuses on that school culture and that includes substitute teachers, bus drivers, and other paraeducators and things like that to build our school community and our culture of our schools that is inclusive and tolerant. And I think that part of that, to grow that inclusion and culture, will have to include paying more to substitute teachers so that we can have a more diverse group and a group that wants to stay and help our students. And you have to be valued, and that includes being paid well or paid appropriately. Yeah.
Excellent. Tom, any follow up?
So I'll yes and Jolene again. I mean, I thought that was a fantastic response, and the idea around including more of the stakeholders from the entire community, whether it be substitute teachers and bus drivers and the like, I think is really important, and that's something that that I've always had the opportunity to do on my projects and programs and efforts, is to bring people together from very, very different backgrounds. And so, yeah, I think that would be a great idea. And I 100% support that.
Excellent. Gian, if you're done coughing, you have anything you want to add?
Well, yeah. How we pay our teachers shows how we respect them. They include our substitutes and everybody else. And if we're paying the lowest, it shows we respect them that much less than the rest of the counties around. So we have to, like I said, if we're not meeting what the other counties are doing, we should be doing more. This is Howard County after all. And between us and Montgomery County, we spend the most in this state on our schools. So hold on.
No worries. We'll wait on you.
Whew. All right. Where was I? Thanks. I forgot my train of thought. All right.
That's okay. I understand, man. Jolene, you get the final word on this.
I think some other areas that include thinking about funding formulas and pay and things like that are, a lot of our funding formulas are dealing with enrollment and things like that. And I think that the substitute teacher pay kind of falls into the same category as well. As sometimes we need not only staff and support based on enrollment, but also on what the demographics of the school is like. And I would like to see more talk and discussion and changes in funding formulas based on demographics as well as enrollment in schools. And I think that part of that conversation is increasing the substitute pay.
Okay. So those are the four candidates. We are doing really great on time. Where it's only 6:02. So if you guys would bear with me, I want to ask one more question that I think is really important. Gian, sorry, you can beat me up later once you're healthy again. But I'm going to ask one more question, and it has to do with school capacity. A number of you touched on school capacity when we talked about the redistricting question. We talk about adding schools and need for capacity, but what we don't talk about is adding onto existing schools, increasing the capacity at the existing schools that we have. Moving high schools from a 1,500 seat high school to a 2,000 seat high school by adding an addition onto that school. Is that something that you feel that the Board of Education should look into to address the capacity issues that we have in this county? And Gian, I'll start with you. As soon as you, I know you knew I was going to do that, right? It's just your turn.
All right, let's see if I can get through this. Yes, that's actually one of the ways to address the capacity issues, is by building on not just new schools, but building on to the ones we currently have. And that's something we should be doing, something that we should be putting into these budgets, as well as the deferred maintenance and everything else that we got going on with that. We can't just simply be like, hey, this is what we have, this is what we're going to work with. No, we have to keep improving. That's how you move around. We may run out of room at the rate the developers are destroying our county. We're going to run out of room unless we start making them build schools to support the support the county. Because let's face it, we have enough communities for our schools. We don't have enough schools for our communities or enough capacity to fill. Oh, hold on.
No worries.
We don't have enough schools for our communities. So we have to look at adding on to our schools and improving them as well as building new ones. It's not just one or the other. We have to do both because we need to get these capacity levels up to support the community.
All right. Thank you. Jolene.
I think the building is, so what I'm understanding is you're talking about the building up model instead of building more, right? And I think that there are neighboring counties and cities that do very similar work to that. Some of the things that I consider when I'm thinking about that is the impact of what does our community expect in our schools? If we're talking about an elementary school, how are the elementary schools doing that have 450 kids versus how are the elementary schools in our school system, how we run things, doing that have 1,000 students, right? Are those school experiences the same for those communities? Is it the same for those teachers? Is it the same for those students? Are those communities still feeling involved in their school system? Are we seeing different levels of absenteeism across the school sizes? And then how, and we look at the older students, high school level, how does that work with their programs that are available to them? How does that work for what schools classes are available? Because right now we see differences in what AP classes a neighboring school is giving versus the school next door that has lower enrollment and what they're capable of doing. So I'd like to see how we can do build up in a way that maintains what the community experience wants and what is best for our students' learning environment. I know that, working with county council, working with developers, working with all these people who are involved in this same thing to have honest conversations about when we bring in this development, it's going to have this many students, looking at census data instead of just one source, looking at multiple sources of data to figure out modeling and predictive modeling. I do a lot of predictive modeling for work. That's kind of what I do. So working with different tools and data to figure out what is an accurate projection and what are our needs and what does our community want in our schools.
Okay.
School experience to be.
Tom.
Yeah, I mean, so if the question is, is that something the board should look into? Absolutely. I mean, you can look into it and assess it and see whether that's the right way to go or not. I mean, Jolene just raised a bunch of great questions that you would ask, right, if you were going to go down that road. I think some additional questions I might add would be, what are the cost implications of building up versus building out? What are some of the other implications of finding locations, right? Like finding a right location has been a hot issue for the next high school. What are the policies, regulations for, doing that? Ultimately, what's the impact on education? And then I would say also kind of as part of that conversation with the community, and this goes to redistricting, is it's important to go out there and say, okay, we've heard you and we're taking your input, right? We're taking that input in, we've assessed it. Either yes, we're going to move forward with your suggestions this way, or no, we're not going to, and here's why. Because when we don't do that, when we don't tell people like, hey, listen, we heard you and we're going a different direction and here's why, then people begin to think, well, look, you don't really understand the benefits, or you're just going through the motions, or you don't care about the well-being of my children. And that's when animosity breeds. That's when anger starts to grow. That's when anxiety starts to grow. And that's what we saw with redistricting. So I think it's, I'm kind of pulling that aspect in there because Jolene did a great job of kind of assessing some of the questions that you would ask, but that's also a really important piece to all this.
Okay. Gian, any follow-up?
Yeah. And this time I got off ahead of time. Well, like both of them said, there are things we're obviously going to have to look into. Usually building onto is going to be cheaper than building a brand new school because you don't need to add soccer fields and this field and that because it's already provided. However, one thing to also keep in mind, it's going to keep our communities together by building onto the schools we have. This way they can actually support the community that they're around, the neighborhoods that they're supposed to be serving. That's why those schools were built where they were when they were built. And of course, right in the middle. But that's, that's one of the things we can also discuss with the communities. How do they feel about it? I mean, for me, it would make more sense to not only build onto, but build up and out. Because again, we have to, it's been brought up, bringing in projections of what we are assuming that's going to be coming. However, those projections that they've been using lately have always been wrong. They've been under projecting. And that's where a lot of our problems are coming in. Is we got more students coming in than we're projecting, and we don't have schools for that. So we got to find ways to support the communities and ensure that we are looking into how it affects everybody. And I'm done.
Jolene.
I just want to finish on to what Gian was saying. The predictions that the Office of School Planning does predict are fairly reasonable on the county level side. The problem that we see frequently is when there is development clustered in one area in a particular school. And it does impact mostly the very smaller elementary schools. That's when the numbers get a little fuzzy and outside of the scope of what is acceptable error, right? Okay.
You're good. No, you got time. Sorry, I was just
Thinking
your
about
30
stuff.
seconds. I know.
I think something else to think about when we're talking about building up and versus building out is maybe it's not the school building itself, maybe it's the schedule. That's the issue, right? And we do have some surrounding areas that do, like 6 weeks on, so many weeks off, 6 weeks, whatever schedule works for that enrollment count or whatever. I think those are also some ideas that we can talk about when we talk about how things might change, even reducing the number of students in a classroom because of what we're experiencing right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we've covered the ground pretty well here. I wouldn't add anything new or different. I think, everybody's saying, listen, this is something we should at least explore and then assess the impacts to, it makes sense. Intuitively, it makes sense from, a cost and budgetary perspective for a lot of reasons, but like, you don't want to, break apart the community that has been built in that school, right? And that's one of the reasons why people are so apprehensive about redistricting, right? There's lots of schools where communities are being torn apart. But obviously, overcapacity, we have to do something.
Okay, excellent. Look, candidates, we will use the remainder of time for the candidate to provide any final comments to those watching online now, who may watch this later, to the voters in District 3. And we are going to stay in order. We're going to start with Jolene.
Okay. I wasn't paying all full attention on the order there. It's fine. It's all good. It's all good. So thank you for letting me talk here. It's been a nice discussion. I'm really glad to finally meet Tom. I hadn't met you before. Thanks for coming. Gian, I hope you feel better very soon. How scary of an experience for that. And I hope you continue to stay well after. I am very excited to be running for Board of Ed. I think I'm really good for the role. I think I understand a lot of community discussions and I understand business perspective as well. I think that my life experience and my children's experience being all over the place and their needs will be very beneficial to the Board of Education. I've lived in the county a while. I have also many friends and relatives that live all over the country and are experiencing different types of school situations all over the place. And I'm very excited to talk about education and these things. And if people want to learn more about me, like I said, they can reach out to me. My website is jolenemosley.com. I have Facebook accounts, Instagram, Twitter. I do have a TikTok, but don't go there. My teenager might get really upset with me, but it's really fun. So anyway, I'm around. People can contact me, email, text, whatever. I really like talking to people. And I look forward to meeting more people and encouraging people to mail in their ballot, vote and mail in their ballot, get it in there, right? They're all getting mailed to every voter. We can do this.
All right. Thank you, Jolene.
Yep.
Tom, you're next.
Scott, thanks for putting this together. Thanks for Jolene and John. You guys are awesome. You're rock stars. I do want to lead with something here for everybody watching and listening. When we're going through this process, be kind to one another, be respectful of everybody's views, assume noble intent. It's hard when you're engaging over the internet and social media, but most people are good. And so the other thing I'll kind of flip to is, let me start with why you shouldn't vote for me. Be a little bit contrarian here. If you're looking for somebody that has a really big political campaign bank account, then you shouldn't vote for me, because I don't have one. I'm self-funded. I'm not taking donations, because I don't think that a board member or the board should be backed by large financial interests. If you're looking for political endorsements, you shouldn't vote for me, because I don't have any. I'm not looking for them, and I'm not accepting them. I don't think this should be a partisan role or partisan office. If you're looking for somebody with a long political background, I don't have it. So don't vote for me for that. But here's why you should vote for me. And I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. My two superpowers in life, it's not playing the ukulele I have behind me, but it's really solving really tough, complex, ambiguous problems, bringing together people that are oftentimes polarized from one another, have very different backgrounds, to build alignment and to solve problems innovatively. That's my background in innovation and design. So yeah, if you want to learn more about it, like Jolene, I'm always up for a discussion. You can go to tomheffnerforboe.org. Again, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and be kind to one another.
Thank you, Tom. John, you get the final word. Do the best you can, man.
All right, let's try to get through this. Oh, of course. All right, there we go. Well, again, I'm just going to bring up, I've been experienced with being in the PTA, the PTAC, and, doing things with that, dealing with, part of the special education. My child has autism. I've been, helping. I've seen the fight that our special education parents go through just to get 504s, and just how difficult it is to get the support that our special education students need. Okay, let's see if I can finish this.
Okay.
But I've been in this fight with the special education, and I want to sit here and I want to help as many of our parents and families and basically our forgotten communities here with getting what they need and what the board has. Oh yeah, I'm not making it.
That's okay, man. All right. Well, look, John, I really do hope you get to feeling better very soon. So sad that you ended up with this thing that's going around. It's horrible. I'm glad that you're on the back end of it. Obviously, not all the way through it yet, but I think everybody wishes you the best going forward. I also want to thank all the candidates that participated in this session today. I appreciate you taking some time on a Friday afternoon to let the voters know a little bit about you in this way. And I wish you all the very best of luck in the upcoming primary. I have one debate left on the schedule right now. District 2 candidates are scheduled to join me tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So I hope anyone that has an opportunity tomorrow morning tunes in at 10. I'll be live streaming on Facebook. Just like what we're doing here today. And I think that's all I have for everyone today. This is Scotty signing off.